Hello Libra and welcome. Thank you so very much for being here with me. It is a blessing and pleasure as always to be joining you today. Please do trust that whenever you have found this video, there are likely to be messages within its contents for you. I would encourage you to use your discernment, take only what resonates with you and leave the rest for someone else. Please do not make anything your story that isn't. This message is interesting in the sense that it reminds me of, oh goodness, I can't remember exactly what verse it is. I believe it's in Luke is what I'm thinking of. I could be wrong on that though, so forgive me. But there's a message in scripture where it says, Martha, Martha, you are anxious or you are worried or something like that about many things. And I don't know why, but it's giving me that vibe. And I think that has something to do with the fact that the initial message that I started having come in for you says, Libra, Libra, Libra. When will you learn that you cannot be everything to everyone else and still be yourself, right? You can kind of see the parallels there. There's this feeling of trying to do all the things, trying to be all the things, and feeling very scattered. I'm actually seeing what looks like puzzle pieces falling on the floor and just kind of scattering everywhere. You know, it's giving me this feeling of being all over the place like that. And in that particular verse from scripture, there's a feeling of that as well. You know, where it's almost as though Martha, you know, is tending to all the things and is doing what she feels is required of her, but is not doing what she needs to be doing, truly, from like within her being. You know, so it's giving me that kind of vibe. And maybe you have been experiencing this yourself. Maybe over more recent years you've felt as though you've been giving lots of yourself to things that maybe don't have a whole lot of weight for you, that maybe don't mean a whole lot to you on a very deep level. That's not to say that you don't care about what you're doing necessarily, but just that maybe it feels very surface, and maybe you don't feel as though whatever you're putting out is being reciprocated back to you, right? Maybe it doesn't feel fulfilling to you. Again, it's not to say that you don't care or, you know, that it's meaningless or any of those sorts of things, but it just feels unfulfilling. Or again, it feels as though maybe it's not reciprocated. Maybe it's not something that, you know, you pour into and get something back from necessarily, other than the feeling that you're taking care of others or maybe fulfilling some sort of obligation or responsibility, you know, something along those lines. So again, you could have been experiencing that over recent years. Maybe this is something that you're noticing has been taking place. I'm getting this kind of light bulb turning on type of energy, which we'll get back to that here in a few minutes. But I did have a song come in for you as well, which will be linked in the notes below if you want to give it a listen. It's called Edge of the World by Medusa. And though the lyrics are resonant to the message as a whole, I don't feel like it's the brunt, if that makes any sense. Like it's more along, I feel like it's more resonant with the title itself. Okay. And I did see the Come to the Edge card, the number 36 from the Wisdom of the Oracle deck, which we will be using. And there are these essential meanings with that card that talk about courage and taking a leap of faith and overcoming fear and accepting risk. and these sorts of things. And so with that song and that card, I got these two messages or two threads of information coming through. One being, having the courage to be exactly who you are, risking rejection and being disliked. So having this courage to be who you are and not really giving two F's about who likes it and who doesn't. That's not to say that you're cruel or mean or that you don't take responsibility for yourself and just, you can run around all willy-nilly. That's not what I'm saying here. But I am saying that you aren't meant to please everyone. And in fact, you cannot please everyone by trying to bend and mold yourself to their liking. It's just, it doesn't work that way, and you'll end up more hollow and all sorts of other things trying to do that. So there's this one thread of having this courage to be who you are, regardless of what anyone else is going to think or say about it. And then there's another thread that is essentially asking to have a conversation with yourself, okay? Like, would those that you're willing to go to the edge of the world for, those you're willing to risk it all for, would they do the same for you? Right? Because in the song, there are these lyrics that say something along the lines of, take me to the edge of the world with you. I want to see the edge of the world with you. And there's this feeling of almost devotion, right? But you're being asked if those that you are so devoted to would be as devoted to you. Would they reciprocate that back to you? It's not that we would expect things in return. That's not why the question is being asked. But it's being asked because I feel like perhaps some of the situations or relationships that you may be involved in are not evenly yoked. There may be situations or relationships that are taking advantage of your devotion, are taking advantage of your love. And so it's having this very real, very radical, honest conversation with yourself, right? Would they meet you with the same level of love and devotion and sacrifice? What if you were empty-handed and had nothing to give, had nothing to share? If you showed up, okay, to a situation, a relationship, whatever it is, empty-handed. Now, and I just want to be very clear here, we all have things inherent within ourselves to give, okay? So I'm not saying that, showing up empty-handed means you show up with nothing, okay? But for all intents and purposes, it's having this real conversation. Like, if I were to show up with nothing, offering nothing, if I weren't falling at your feet, if I weren't worshiping you, if I weren't giving all of myself to this situation, this relationship, what would that look like? Would that situation still have its place? Would you still have a place in that situation, in that relationship? Would it have a place in your life? And to take that a step further, I feel like it's appropriate to ask yourself, what trauma, wounding, or programming are you attempting to harmonize, to fill by positioning yourself in that way by, giving and giving and giving and giving, and it not being reciprocated back to you, it not filling your well, it not being something that's actually quite meaningful to you, that feels purposeful, apart from just you having value by what you can offer, what you can give, the kind of devotion and love that you can share. I hope this makes sense. That being said, it brings me back to my earlier point, because another song came through for you as I was actually shuffling cards and preparing and all of that, which is called Revelation by Astral. There are no really words in that song, by the way. It's just very kind of melodic. But I feel like it's so relevant because there is something here about no longer sacrificing yourself for the comfort or benefit of others. It's not to say you can't love or help other people, but there has to be this balance, which is just kind of ironic considering that in the tarot, you're represented by the Justice card, which of course, is often shown with the scales. This balance, this harmony, it's this idea, it's this calling for you to step into who you are. And it's just mind-blowing because actually, while shuffling and getting the things around, I actually did see a glimpse of the Justice card in the tarot. And that's the wild part about it. I'm kind of going off on a little sidetrack over here. We're in like full side quest mode right now. But it's interesting that I only caught a glimpse of it because I feel like that may be very relevant to how you experience yourself. Like maybe you catch glimpses of yourself here and there where you feel a little bit more balanced and harmonious within yourself, but it feels very fleeting. And I feel like that's this kind of reverting, if you will, back to the trauma, wounding, and programming, those themes that are underlying, running in the background. So again, it's this, need, so it's this need for balance. It kind of has this put on your own oxygen mask before trying to help others vibe. Give yourself the love and attention and things that you need so that you can better serve others. There's nothing wrong with being loving and being of service and developing meaningful relationships. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Where it becomes an issue, or where it can become an issue, is when you are depriving yourself, where you are depleting your own well, sacrificing for the sake of others, and that imbalance occurs. So some things to think about, again, maybe this is something that you've been experiencing. Maybe this is something that has come into your awareness. I feel like it could be something that has shown up in different ways, trying to get your attention. In other words, this may not be the first time you're hearing this, okay? But I feel like this may be something that you are being asked to address moving forward. And finally, a message I got for you coming through was the statement, stop being so agreeable, especially when you don't agree. I can feel that pinging. You may feel a bit called out right now, okay? But there's something here about kind of falling in line, actually. I'm seeing it a bit like when, military or soldiers, like things like this, are kind of like marching in formation. I'm kind of seeing, it like falling in line type of deal. And I feel like moving forward, there's something here about being agreeable, not necessarily equaling harmony and balance. Like, Yes, that may be a temporary experience on an external level, right? So maybe in certain relationships or situations and things like this, being agreeable will temporarily resolve things, but that's not something that solves things long term, right? It doesn't create this lasting harmony or balance. It's often short-lived. Okay, it's such an interesting kind of predicament, the way that this feels, because what I feel like is needed here is discernment, because there's a time and place for everything. There's a time to be agreeable. There's a time to be, maybe sacrificial or allowing for compromise. Okay, there's a time for that, but it's not all the time. And this is where I feel like things get a bit messy. This is where I feel like things have got a bit complicated, and where you're being asked to really kind of analyze things a bit. Am I sacrificing my happiness, my well-being? Am I sacrificing my peace for the sake of whatever this is? And in, a year, 6 months, whatever it is, am I still going to feel the same way about that? Right? Am I still going to feel like that's the right decision to make? So it's very, I don't know, it's fascinating, because it's a little less impulsive. It's a little less, again, kind of being driven by that underlying trauma wounding programming. Okay, again, take it how it resonates with you, leave it if it doesn't. Let's dive into the cards and see what else we can tap into, what's going on, or what may want to come through for you. Father, Mother, Life, Christ, spirits, guides, angels, our cosmic team, our higher selves, tell us, please, what messages would Libra most benefit from right now? I just heard the word listen. That might be significant. Thank you. I don't know if you were distracted and maybe you're not really listening. Maybe someone, thank you, has tried to have a conversation with you about certain things and it's gone kind of in one ear, out the other. I'm also getting that perhaps this could be an invitation to listen to your intuition. You could have had certain things coming in where your intuition is saying one thing and you're like, I don't know. This could be an invitation for you to listen to your intuition. Okay, let's see what we've got. 11th house, Aquarius, collaboration, memberships, network. Yeah, I mean, this is this is really highlighting everything we've just been talking about. Okay, collaboration, memberships, network. When you think about any of those things, there's this implication that things are evenly yoked, that there's this two-way street, or this equal opportunity environment happening. There's this equal opportunity kind of thing going on. Okay, collaboration would imply that two are working together towards a specific goal, right? A membership, even if we think about gym memberships, for goodness sakes, you're paying for something and you're getting the opportunity to use all of this equipment. You're getting something in return. Okay? So it's really bringing this question to the forefront. It's really asking you to consider, are the situations and relationships that you are participating in, that you're involved in, are they equally yoked? Is there a collaboration happening here? Are you getting something? And I don't say that because, we should do things just to get things. But if you are dumping into something and getting nothing, or worse, if you're dumping into something and getting stress and this disruption of peace and this disharmony and imbalance, this tension or maybe even trauma, is that something that you want to continue dumping into? Is that something you want to continue giving your time, your energy, your love, your thoughts, right? Like maybe your money, right? Is this something you want to keep doing? And it's very interesting that it would be this Aquarius energy that would show up, because though Aquarius can be altruistic and humanitarian, right? Very people-oriented, let's say, service-oriented even. There's this vibe, this rebellious kind of vibe, this revolutionary kind of vibe that says, I don't have to just keep showing up like this. Like, I don't have to just keep giving and getting nothing. And not only do I not have to, but why would I? How do I say this? Like, it's interesting because Aquarius, being co-ruled by Saturn and Uranus, Saturn is this putting an effort and getting reward. So again, it brings to the forefront the question, like, are you putting an effort and getting a reward? Are you working towards something, right? Like, a good example of this would be, working somewhere for like a decade or 2 decades or whatever it is, and giving all this time and energy to this job and not getting a raise or recognition or anything like that. It's like, do you want to do that for another decade? Do you want to keep doing that when you could possibly go to another position where you're going to be appreciated, where you're, maybe going to get a raise every now and then? Like, it really does have that kind of vibe to it. It's really reconsidering where you're putting your time and efforts. Is this something you want to keep doing? Because again, collaboration, memberships, even like networking implies that there's a little bit of reciprocation going on here, a little bit of give and take, right? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, type of deal. Again, not the only reason why we do things, but I just feel like you can't pour from an empty cup. And how long before your cup is like empty, and you're left with nothing and feel hollow on the inside because you haven't been dumping into things that are meaningful to you or fulfilling to you? Because it's one thing to give time and energy and attention and heart and love and all that to something that you feel within your being has meaning. It's a whole nother story when you're giving time and energy and attention and heart and love and devotion and sacrificing for something that doesn't mean anything to you. We have here for you as well Lilith, power, activism, and vengeance. So again, this is really aligning with everything we've already been talking about, okay? Because Lilith brings forward that inner sense of justice. It brings forth, maybe these things that we repress, we bury, stirs that like anger, if you will, within ourselves. So it's asking, So it's asking for you essentially to take your power back by addressing these things where there's this injustice. Meaning, are you betraying yourself, giving and dumping into these things that don't mean anything to you, or are not reciprocal, or just leave you feeling empty? Right? Because the thing about Lilith is it's like this fine line. And I feel like there could be this part of you that is like teetering on the edge, right? Maybe you found yourself being a bit angry and not really knowing where it's coming from. You know, maybe you're irritable and you're like, what is going on? Maybe this is something that you have experienced repeatedly. Maybe you notice it in particular situations or experiences with specific people. It could be a really big indicator. You know, that Lilith energy being stirred up beneath the surface, like, hey, this is not okay. This is not right. Wow, 8th house, Scorpio, metamorphosis, death and rebirth. I mean, come on now. Something has got to change. That's what this feels like. And, you know, there's that you know, Scorpio the scorpion, that scorpion sting. The heat of the scorpion, you know, how do I say? The heat of the sting of the scorpion. Like, no, I'm not okay with this. This can't keep happening. Something has got to change. Something has got to transform. Something has got to, like, we have to move forward differently. And lunar eclipse, culmination, release, illumination. Wow. So I'm getting a lot with this, actually. These 4 cards coming together here says to me that, like, the pot is about to boil over. Okay? And you can mitigate that by choosing to allow things to change. Okay? By releasing old ways of thinking, old ways of doing things. Okay? Bringing light to the things that have been running beneath the surface, in the background, in the dark, in the shadow, if you will, right? Trauma wounding programming. These things where you may have been repeatedly showing up in this way, again, being very devotional and sacrificial and loving, which is all beautiful and well if it's balanced. And it's reaching this culmination, right? It's reaching this tipping point where, you know, it's giving me tower vibes, actually, where it's essentially like, hey, this is something that you need to address. This is something that needs your attention. This is something we need to start working on, or everything's going to come crashing down. So it's like you can have this controlled demolition, if you will, where you know, are the one who's pulling things apart and looking at what needs to change, what needs to be allowed to die, and, you know, to be reborn through that, something new, something different. You know, you're releasing things. Or it can just bubble over, and then God knows what that's going to look like. I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that this is an easy task, right? That it's easy to just start facing your shadow, your trauma, your wounding, your programming. And it's easy to look at how these things, are kind of like the puppet master behind the scenes, controlling how you show up in relationships and life and all the things. Okay. I am not saying this is easy. It's not. Okay. It's just not. But there's a really big difference between realizing that something has got to give, something has got to change and shift and be transformed, and deciding to face that head on, compared to, the rug kind of being pulled out from underneath your feet, where God, the angels, the universe, whatever you like to call it, is like, okay, well, we tried to gently nudge you in the right direction and you just are stubborn, or you didn't want nothing to do with it, and so now we're going to try to kind of be a little bit more, we're going to give a little bit more oomph, see if that gets your attention. This could be a time where things come to a head, right? This culmination point, this tipping point, this turning point, where where you sit back and again are very honest with yourself and see where things have to shift and have to change. Or it could be that things reach this point where you just can't ignore it anymore. The house of cards comes crashing down. Okay, the job isn't working. The relationship isn't working, whatever it may be for you. It's like hitting your head against a wall type of thing, right? Where it's like, okay, well, now I have to do something different. And sometimes that can be more painful than embarking on that yourself, being honest with yourself. Okay, what else would come? Okay. Let's say what else would like to come through for Libra. That's too many. We'll take those though. All right, so first out here you have the number 50, no place like home. I feel like this speaks to coming back to yourself. You are your own home. There's a feeling of being far from self. There's a feeling of being far from home, as it were, right? I don't know how to explain this. There's a feeling of being displaced, uncomfortable maybe in your own body, uncomfortable in your own surroundings. I'm hearing the word unwelcome. I've just seen the number 111. That might be significant for you. But there's, again, this attention being drawn to, living in a way that is in alignment with who you truly are. What is that saying? It's like, home is where you make it, or home is something, or home is what you make it, or something like that. I feel like that's coming forward because for as long as you are breathing, this body is your home. And home can be anywhere if you're at home in yourself. But again, there's this feeling of feeling far from that. There's even a feeling of it being out of reach. You may have asked yourself, how do I get back to who I was? Like, where did that person go? I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I don't even know how I got here. Right? Like, this house is up on this kind of like shepherd's hook looking thing, and it feels like it's out of reach. And unfortunately, that tends to happen when we suppress how we truly feel, what we truly are, when we don't feel safe in ourselves, when we don't feel strong and secure in ourselves. That tends to be the case. So I feel like this is asking you to come home to yourself. Now, that may look different than what it did previously. Okay, because we are shifting and evolving all the time. Our beliefs change, our ideas change, all the things. So it may not look the same way that it once did. And I think that's where some can really get stuck, is because they try to get back to something, but you're no longer the same person. You're not operating from the same consciousness level that you once were. And so, I don't really feel like you go back. I feel like there's this metamorphosis into something new, right? It's like being a butterfly and trying to go back to your days of being a caterpillar. Like, it's just not going to work, right? So home may feel differently than what it did before, and that's okay. But I do feel like you're tasked with figuring out what that is. Yang, the number 1. Interesting, after seeing that 111. I mean, this is masculine energy. This is also, it's also very interesting that it shows up after having Lilith with power, because, I do feel this yang energy or masculine energy, this initiatory energy, is power, right? It's will, it's taking action. The beginning of something else as well. That masculine energy isn't just thinking about it, feeling into it. It's doing it. It's interesting that it's coming through with everything that I've already been saying, because there's that, you can take the initiative and do this kind of controlled demolition and let the pieces fall where they may. You can risk, if you will, everything, being exactly who you are, and emerge into the world this new thing. I feel like one of the biggest things with this yang energy is the whole concept of it starting with you, right? Taking the initiative to risk it all, right? To take like a leap of faith, as we were talking about before, to show up in the world as you are. Now, certainly, if you've been repressing, your thoughts and your feelings and all the things for a long time, it's likely that you're not going to know what that is. And so it's taking the initiative to figure it out. Being okay with starting from nothing, right? Like clean slate type of deal, if you will, although, I mean, that's not really how it goes, but for the sake of what we're talking about here, I think it's appropriate. Working to heal your trauma, wounding, and programming isn't necessarily about wiping the slate clean. Okay? Now, maybe in some instances, yes, that's true, but I feel like for the sake of this conversation, I feel like what's more appropriate would be to say that it's more like Chiron the Wounded Healer, right? It's more like recognizing where these things are showing up, how they're showing up, how they trigger you, how they are, running behind the scenes and things like this. And then learning how to transform that into something else. You know, again, there's this like death and rebirth. There's this metamorphosis. And yes, there are certain things that I feel like you will release, and maybe, you know, once you work through it, you'll never look back at it again, but it doesn't leave you unchanged. Do you get what I'm saying? Like the point I'm trying to make here is that when we release things and let go of things and heal things, it's not necessarily that it's a clean slate. It never happened, because we're changed by it. We are different. And so I think a part of this is, again, understanding that figuring out what home is, in other words, you know, figuring out who you are, kind of starts with figuring out where you've been and how that's changed you, and moving forward in a way that it's beneficial for you. Meaning, what wisdom can you take with you from those experiences? That's not saying that, you know, the trauma, the things that have happened to you that have caused you pain and suffering are okay. That's not saying that we're just, you know, fine with it. That's not saying it was right. But it is saying, you know, this happened. How can I use that? How can I turn this into something useful? It's reminding me of the quote from Ovid, which translates from Latin to essentially, be patient and tough. Someday this pain will be useful to you. We may not know what that looks like right now, but we take back our power from those things when we decide that there could be something there for us, some kind of wisdom, some kind of something that we gain, you know, versus this took something from me. I hope that makes sense. We have Treasure Island, the number 9, and it's shown up in the reverse. Again, right? Because again, it's like, how do I say this? It's very interesting to me because I'm seeing this card a lot differently than I have in the past. Because, okay, so a lot of times when I pull this card, there's the feeling of, you know, there's this treasure on your back. You don't even realize you have it. You don't even realize how valuable you truly are. Okay? But in this case, again, it's shown up in the reverse. And there's 2 ways it's coming through. One being risking everything to become what you're meant to be. Okay, risking everything you've built to this point, if you will, right? It's risking the relationship, risking the situation, whatever that might look like for you, to be who you truly are, because it feels as though, you know, you've come to this point where whatever you've built isn't laid upon this foundation that is true to who you are, or true to, you know, what's meaningful to you, etc., etc. And so it's just risking it all to be what you're supposed to be. So you're not living, you know, essentially, so you're not essentially living this lie. Okay, let's just call a spade a spade. So that's one way this is coming through. The other way this is coming through is though you may have experienced pain and suffering, if you, how do I say this? You can take those experiences and lose, if you will, a treasure that's sitting before you. So I just want to say, I'm not trying to be insensitive about anyone's suffering, anyone's pain. I'm not saying that we bypass it. I'm not saying it was okay. I'm not saying you should just get over it. I'm not saying that any of what I'm saying just makes it right. Okay? I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that should you find it within yourself to do so, you can take those experiences, those things, and alchemize it. You can turn what was meant for evil, what was meant for bad and pain and suffering, and turn it into something useful. You can extract wisdom from those experiences, in which case you're sitting on a treasure trove. Or you can just essentially, dump that all out. Right? Let all the, how do I say it? Again, I'm truly not trying to be insensitive. Okay? But it's like you can take those and use those things. Again, you can be sitting on a treasure trove, or you can just dump them. And instead of it being something that, again, you like take your power back from, it's like your power kind of, gets thrown into the ocean with all of it. I hope this is making sense. Let me just move these up a little bit. And let's get some tarot. Tell us more, please. Thank you. Which way, please? All right. Ooh, those are gonna have to go back. Too many. I'm hearing gosh, I don't even know who the artist is of this song. It's an older song. Listen to your heart. What is it? Listen to your heart when it's calling for you. Listen to your heart. Oh gosh, you guys. It's a pretty old song. I feel like you know the truth, right? I feel like that's why that's coming through. Like, listen to your heart. I feel like it's because, like, in your heart of hearts, like, right? Wow. In your heart of hearts, like, what has to be done. What the truth is, however that relates to you, however that may show up for you in your specific experience. It's this, listen to your heart, like, what isn't working, that kind of thing. Thank you. All right. First card here. Wow, Lovers in reverse. Yeah, that's that disharmony showing up. I do feel like this has to do with relationships. In some cases, right? It could be romantic. It doesn't have to be. But more than anything, you know, this Lovers card showing up really does speak to the disharmony, the imbalance, and the need for that. I mean, that's pretty evident at this point. Like, I feel like it goes without saying. But there certainly is a need for this balance, and even more than that, there's a need for self-love. I feel like you could be someone who has believed that your worth or your ability to be loved comes from what you can provide, or what you give, how you sacrifice, or how devoted you are to someone else, right? So essentially, my ability to be loved comes from me kind of pushing myself aside, or pushing myself down, pushing myself to the back burner, however you may want to phrase that. And I feel, again, like you're being asked to bring yourself to the forefront. You don't have to do anything to be worthy of love. It's like putting your worth in whether or not other people love you. Does that make sense? If it's for you, I feel like you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Because it feels like my value, my worth is in whether or not other people love me. Now, that looks very different to someone who, you know, has trauma wounding and programming around love, around worth, around even abandonment, things like this, right? Compared to someone who doesn't have those wounds. And it also is very different to someone who maybe has their own wounds, their own trauma, that are going to take advantage of that. Okay, so for example, someone who loves you because of how you make them feel, what you can give to them, like that's not love. Okay, I say all that because there's this feeling of putting your worth in whether or not other people love you, like putting your value and your worth in how other people see you, whether or not they approve of you, right? If they love you. And what you're being asked to do here is to love yourself, regardless of how anyone else feels about it, or whether or not anyone else says you're worthy. Again, not saying this is easy, but Page of Pentacles showing up for you next. I feel like a part of why the Page of Pentacles shows up has to do with patience. Right? As an air sign, it may be difficult to be patient. You may want to see things starting to improve or feeling different like right away. And that's not really how this works. So I feel like, part of this challenge for you could be the patience that's required to actually create real lasting change, to actually create shifts, to actually transform. and to feel it. Like, it can take a lot longer than what you might expect. Let's see what else is here. Oh, the Five of Pentacles in the reverse. But like, yeah, exactly. It's, yes, okay, thank you. It's exactly that, right? That's how this is coming through. It's like this, there's a lot of patience that's required for improvement to take place, for healing with the star here to take place. For the shift in consciousness, thank you, to take place. Okay, there's a lot of patience required. You can't just go from feeling left out in the cold, from feeling like you're missing something, to, you know, meditating for 10 minutes and saying some affirmations and, you know, drinking the positivity, and all of a sudden you're healed and good and you feel great and you're just a brand new person. Like, there may be aspects that can shift rather quickly, because in some cases, half the battle is just bringing your attention to it. But realistically speaking, true evolution, true shifts in consciousness, true healing, true purification takes time. It takes time to actually see the improvements, to actually feel the healing, to actually feel the shifts in consciousness, to actually feel, let's say, your power returning to you, to feel more at home in yourself. Like, those things take time, right? It's really interesting because here on the star card, right, she's sitting on the ground with this, you know, tether to the star. Like, it takes time to feel like you're able to surrender to those higher levels of consciousness, those higher levels of awareness, to that healing. Like, these things take time. Improving these things takes time. And so, again, you know, there's this self-love required, this grace required as you move through this process, which is definitely more of a feminine aspect, by the way, right? That feminine energy is more allowing, and whether you're male or female is irrelevant, right? We carry both of these energies within us, both of these aspects within us. And maybe you've been, right, more in that masculine state where it's, you know, go, 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 action, 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 moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. Like, just keep going, you know, keep burning the candle at both ends type of vibe. And, you know, now you're being asked to rein it in, to focus more on yourself and to be more allowing, be more receptive. I get the sense, you know, you may be like, you may be a giver, and that's beautiful, right? But it's okay for you to receive as well. Wow, Five of Cups. So there's a lot of 5 energy showing up here for you, Libra, right? There's no place like home, the number 50 or 5, 5 of Pentacles, the 5 of Cups. And that's really indicative of not only change, but also kind of the turbulence that comes with that. And so I do feel, you know, there's this woo-woo kind of love and light nonsense that's spread around, you know, that gives you this idea that you can just affirmation and meditate your way. Ooh, I'm getting a throat chakra thing. I don't know if you can hear that. Like you can like affirmation your way, and now that I've said something, it's starting to clear up. That's so funny. You can affirmation your way and meditate your way out of whatever trauma, wounding, and programming that is essentially controlling things behind the scenes. It's calling all the shots. That's spiritual bypassing. It does more harm than good. Right? So I feel like this is really bringing to your attention the fact that this doesn't just happen overnight. Okay? Moving through and healing whatever grief, whatever pain and suffering, trauma that you've experienced, releasing that and allowing yourself to be transformed by the healing of that, by the acceptance of that, by the transformation of that, like that, it takes time. I'm hearing, you know, take as much time as you need. There's a feeling of codependency here. There's a feeling of like jumping from relationship to relationship, and I don't necessarily mean that in a sexual or romantic way, though that could also be true. What I mean by that more than anything is just the need for people, for approval, for acceptance, like you know, the need for someone to tell you that you're worthy, that you're valuable, that you're wanted, that you're loved. Right? It coming from this external source, where this transformation that I feel like you're being asked to allow yourself to go through is one where that's no longer going to come, where it eventually leads to that no longer coming from an external source, but rather from within yourself. Okay, so moving forward, thank you. I've just noticed, pause. I've just noticed, so I kind of randomly pull out some crystals and things before starting, just to support whatever energies I'm bringing through and the messages that may be coming up. And I think it's wild AF. I've just realized that actually what is out here for you is this little turquoise sea turtle, which, funny enough, is also on the Treasure Island card here. Time for you to come out of your shell, Libra. Like, really. You know, there are people in the world who need exactly who you are, who will benefit from knowing you exactly as you are. And what I mean by that, and that's not to say that you can't change. That's not to say that you know, you have to be this one way. No, what I mean is there are people who can absolutely benefit from knowing your most authentic self. Okay? From you sharing your most authentic self, whatever that looks like in that moment. People who can benefit from your truth. Okay? There it is. Oh, let me check the bottom of the tarot. Interesting. The number 7, the Chariot card in the reverse. So you do have a lot of, you know, major arcana showing up here. Of course, the Lovers in the reverse, the Star card, which is interesting because the Star card 17 reduces to 6. So you have 2 6s showing up, and now the 7. the first thing that I get with this Chariot card in the reverse is, of course, this more slow energy, slower moving, because if you look here, you know, the Chariot in the upright is more of this faster paced kind of energy. So there is this slower moving vibe to the Chariot coming up here. Why am I hearing, gosh, there's so much music coming through for you, Libra. I'm hearing that song, I don't know why. Headstrong by Trapped, I think is who it's by. What? I don't even know the lyrics anymore. I can hear it. Like I can hear it in my head, but like not clear enough to get the lyrics. But what is it like? Something like "Back off, I'll take you on," or how does it go? Headstrong to take on anyone. Something I don't I don't know. But I'm getting the feeling, I feel like there's this stubbornness. There's this, you know, headstrong kind of energy coming through here. Why do I feel like there's like a headstrong, stubborn, I know kind of energy, but it feels like it's coming from the trauma, the wounding, the programming. Like it's not coming from a healed place. Right? It's like, it's like I know, but I don't know. Like I think I know. There's a feeling of needing to understand the lesson before being able to move forward. Right? Which again, it brings me back to that slower moving energy. It's like, let's not try to bypass things. Let's not try to just speed past what actually needs to take place here. So it's really reiterating that, you know, need for patience, the need for grace, the need for a bit of, we'll say, responsibility and discipline on your part to give yourself the time needed to be able to work through the things, to be able to heal the things. Oh, yeah. And the Hanged Man in the reverse underneath that. I mean, I could probably keep going and we could be here all day. But you know, with the Hanged Man showing up, it's like there's this needless sacrifice. It's like you don't, how do I say this? With the Hanged Man in reverse, it's like not getting the perspective needed, not being able to see things the way you need to in order to move forward in a way where you're not just needlessly sacrificing all of these bits of yourself. The other interesting thing about the Chariot and the Hanged Man, both in this reverse energy, is it's like this being stuck, which may be how you've been feeling. That's not to say that maybe you aren't making, you know, certain moves or advancements in like your career or certain places in your life, but that may not be what it feels like on an internal level, on a deeper level. Okay. Well, I'm so glad. I'm so glad we looked at the bottom there. I mean, I feel, again, I just feel like it really gives some insight to um, what may need to be on like a post-it note for you moving forward, if you will, right? Not something just tucked back in the back like collecting dust, but rather something that needs to be remembered as you move forward, right? Should you choose to embark on this transformational journey, this healing journey. You know, again, it's this understanding that, you know, it's not just about speeding through it. And that's one of the issues, one of the things that I think a lot of people tend to fall into when taking on this task of, you know, healing the self, of purifying the self, of getting to who you truly are, of evolving. Like, I think this is something that a lot of people get caught up in, right? Where it's this expectation that things are just going to move very quickly. And the reality is it tends to move pretty slowly, actually. And most of the time, you don't even realize how much you've changed or how big of an impact what you've been doing has had until you look back. Like, when you're in the thick of it, it feels like nothing is happening, actually, a lot of times. And then once you kind of, you know, get through it, you look back and you're like, holy biscuits and gravy. I'm actually a much different person than what I was when I started this. So I think that could be very helpful for you to keep as a reminder, again, should you choose to move forward with, you know, your own transformational, your own healing journey. We have here for you the law of mentalism. Get clarity on your core values and commit to what matters. It has shown up here in the reverse, which is really interesting, with the Chariot in the reverse as well, because it too speaks about getting clarity on your goals. And I feel like this is kind of giving you a starting point. Because a lot of times when we start looking at our trauma, wounding, and programming, and we start delving more deeply into that, it can be really overwhelming, because you may not have any idea where to start. And if you're somebody who has, you know, repressed what you feel and what you think for a long time, the goal, if you will, can not actually be your goal. So, for example, you know, maybe you've grown up in a culture, a family, whatever it is, where the goal is to have a job that pays this much and to live in this neighborhood and to have this spouse and these kids and this and, you know, right, check all the boxes type of thing. But that's not actually your goal. That's a goal you've been programmed with. Okay. And maybe you even have trauma around based on your culture, your family, your environment, belief systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so the reflection that you see in all these goals is not yours. And so a starting point, or a place to start, is to, again, get clarity on what those core values are, what matters to you, get clarity on that, and commit to it. And start to get to a point where you start to see your own reflection in the goals that you're choosing to pursue. And that can start off as something very simple, right? The goal is for me to be honest with myself and with those around me. I mean, it's easier said than done, but for the sake of conversation, you get what I'm saying here, right? It's like, what do I actually want? What actually means something to me? And that might take time to understand as well, right? If you're somebody who has repressed and suppressed who you are for a long time, it might take a bit of digging. But if you consider the fact that you are this treasure, like your most authentic self is this treasure, then maybe you won't be afraid to dig. Maybe you won't be afraid of the time it takes, you know, or getting your hands dirty, if you will, you know, committing to it over and over and over again to get to that treasure, right? Maybe you won't be afraid of that. Maybe that can be the thing that keeps you going. Like, I have something here within me. The law of tithing. Expand your consciousness and all things will be added. What an interesting card to show up for you. Right? Because we've just talked about how it takes patience to improve, you know, to heal, to change, to shift your consciousness. Like that, this all takes time. We've just been talking about this, right? And you can do that through allowing yourself to grieve and to work through your pain and your trauma and all the things, right? Expand your consciousness and all things will be added. Here we've just been talking about this treasure, right? This treasure that's within you. It's like, and again, I say this not to be insensitive, but to hopefully inspire. If you are someone who, let's say, has been in this victim mentality, right? Why does this always happen to me? Nobody loves me. Nobody cares, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have to go through all the different ways this can show up. If you're sitting in that space, it's all you're going to see. That's going, I mean, you can't get beyond that, okay? If you're operating from that level of consciousness, where this is all it is, this is all it is, this is all there will ever be, like, this is just my life. That is what you're going to experience. But if you're able to, as the card says here, expand your consciousness, play the observer, as it were, see things from different perspectives, all things will be added. More will be available to you. Each one of us can only operate or live or move from the level of consciousness that we're at. That's it. And it's not until we expand upon that that we can understand or see things differently. It's that simple and that complicated. And so here, right, there's two people, there's two leopards or cheetahs or whatever they are. There's doubles of things here. So it's like this increases. Stepping outside of what you've always known, playing the observer, allowing yourself the opportunity to see things differently, creates expansion. Expand your levels of awareness, expand your levels of consciousness, and opens you up to things that you did not even know were possible. Opens you up to situations and experiences, ways of thinking, certain levels of wisdom that you did not even know were possible. But if you don't allow yourself the opportunity to even step outside of that, then you're not going to be able to experience that. Okay, final messages. Thank you. Okay, thank you. One more, please. Thank you. All right. Interesting that all of your final messages here showed up in the face-up position. I think it's really fascinating because, how do I say this? It's like there's no hiding it, right? These things are coming to the surface. I feel like there's this, I don't want to say obvious, but it does kind of feel that way. It's like, it's very right there. Okay. So the first card out here for you is Crystal Skull Wisdom, clarity, divine healing, high vibrational energy. You've had this clarity energy coming through quite a bit. And I feel, like that is going to be one of the bigger keys to your healing, is this sense of clarity, because it does feel as though there's this feeling of almost moving through fog. I'm actually seeing this image of walking down a street at night when it's like very foggy and not being able to see very far in front of your face. And I think this may be what life has felt a lot like, right? Like moving through a fog. Like, you may be somebody who has been very kind of indecisive, right? Which can be very true to Libra, right? And maybe that comes from this need for clarity, right? And again, if you've been someone who has been living and operating and moving from the beliefs of other people, or from your trauma, your wounding, and your programming, and you've allowed other people to, you know, kind of lead the way, and you've been more of a follower type, if you will, right? Or you have sought this external validation and external approval, then of course life is going to feel like you're in a fog. Why wouldn't it? I feel like that's to be expected, right? So it does feel as though gaining this sense of clarity on, you know, what you truly feel, what you truly think, what you truly believe, again, not an easy task, but, you know, to take it upon yourself to do the work in order to figure that out, I feel like is going to provide a tremendous amount of clarity and trigger a lot of healing. You also have here Heart of Source, all-encompassing love, unconditional acceptance, serenity. Isn't that fascinating? Because I've already said, you don't have to do anything to be worthy of love. And there's this whole message that's come through about, you know, risking everything to be exactly who you are. This unconditional acceptance, this all-encompassing love, which points back to, you know, and whether or not you believe or, you know, whatever you may feel about it, God, Christ, the angels love you unconditionally. Okay, there's nothing that you can do that can make God not love you. Nothing. Nothing. Like I almost hear this like nothing? Nothing. That's not to say that you should just go do anything and test out the theory, okay? That's not what I'm saying here. But what I am saying is that you are loved beyond what you can even fathom. Even if you don't feel like it. even if you don't think it's possible, even if you feel like you've done nothing to deserve it. You are loved. And God, Christ, the angels, those super sensible beings know you on a level that no one walking the face of this planet does. And so I just want to encourage you to allow yourself, though I know what a challenge that might be, allow yourself to accept who you are and to work on healing, that root chakra, to create this safety and security in who you are, right? You're not going to please everyone. It is impossible. It is impossible to please everyone or to make everyone love you, especially without losing yourself in the process. And if it's impossible for everyone to love you and everyone to accept you for exactly as who you are, if it's impossible to please everyone, you might as well be okay with who you are yourself. You might as well accept yourself. You might as well, work on building the foundation to be strong and secure in who you are, to feel safe in who you are. And understand you're not doing that without support. So give yourself some grace. Lemurian seed codes: embracing sensitivity, uniqueness, living with grace, like I've been saying. I listened to a podcast, Know Thyself was the name of the podcast, and the guest was Dr. Robert Gilbert. And he was speaking about how each one of us is as unique as a snowflake, right? We all have heard how there are no two snowflakes that are alike. Similarly, with people, there are no two people who are alike, and there are no two people who offer the same gifts to the planet, to humanity. And so your being here offers to humanity the unique gift that is you, whatever that looks like. And if you don't allow yourself to be who you are, we as humanity may never receive that gift. Right? So there's a lot here about recognizing the challenges of becoming your most authentic self and admitting those challenges, right? Giving yourself grace, being patient, as hard as it may be, and allowing yourself to learn along the way, being open to the treasure that you may find when you start to uncover who you truly are. And I pray that you do that, because we will certainly be missing out if you choose not to. Thank you so much, Libra, for joining me. It has been an absolute joy to be here and to share these messages with you. I pray that something here has been helpful for you or valuable for you, or even has provided some kind of confirmation for you. Take care of your growing, evolving, beautiful, needed soul. Peace be with you and within you, and I hope to see you in another